Hey guys, my name is Antonio Maltese. I was asked to come here today on behalf of the EVERYLIFE Foundation for Rare Diseases about the importance of young adult advocacy and to encourage everyone to use their voice to advocate for the rare disease community. I'm a member of YAR, the Young Adult Representatives of Rare Disease Legislative Advocates, also known as RDLA. And I got it. I just hooked it up to Bluetooth.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Which is a program powered by EVERYLIFE that focuses on building up skills in our young adult community. I'm also a member of the Huntington's Disease Youth Organization, the Huntington's Disease Society of America, and I'm the regional lead for Virginia for the National Youth Alliance for Huntington's Disease Youth Organization. So, this is a quote from my dad. Me and my dad both have Huntington's disease. I tested positive when I was 19. I'm 21 right now. I'll be 22 in May. And he always taught me to be strong like bull, no matter what. We grew up in New York, so I'll always be a New Yorker at heart. Moved to Virginia when I was 8. I am a senior political science major at Virginia Commonwealth University, minoring in German. For those of you who don't know, Huntington's disease is it's described as ALS, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's combined, and normally people have a lifespan of 30 to 65, but there have been a lot of clinical trials that are going on, and that's why I'm here to advocate and part of the scientific advocacy committee for the EVERYLIFE Foundation. I've always had a spark for advocacy and for, helping the underdogs, especially for people like us who are affected by some debilitating disease and who feel like they're lost in the sea of political divide and left to fend for themselves. Because that's not the case. But with courage, knowledge, hope, and support, we will voice our needs to Congress, our concerns to Congress, and we will find better, more effective, and more accessible treatments and cures. I'm here to tell you there is and will always be hope. So this is just a little overview of today's agenda. I'm going to talk a little bit about EVERYLIFE's mission. I'm going to give an overview of YAR, try and give some tips on how you can create relationship with members of Congress, like events, Rare Disease Week, Rare Across America, and how you can advocate from home. So, has anyone heard of the EVERYLIFE Foundation? Has anyone heard of RDLA, or the Rare Disease Legislative Advocates? Awesome. What about Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill? So the marketing of EVERYLIFE Foundation likes to make things a little complicated sometimes, but these things actually all stem from the same foundation. RDLA is a program of EVERYLIFE, and RDLA brings you Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill as well. The mission of EVERYLIFE is to accelerate biotech innovation for rare disease therapies through science-driven public policy. We believe no disease is too rare to deserve treatment, that rare disease therapies should be safe and effective, and that we can do more with the science we already have. We advocate for evidence-based public policy and regulatory reform, and we do this through science and policy expertise and through grassroots action. The programs we have are designed to serve and support rare disease patients, promote awareness about rare diseases, build a grassroots advocacy community, advance regulatory science and policy, and drive public policy and legislative change. So we really focus on giving rare disease patients a voice in the community and to their congressmen and women. And we really try and focus that rare disease does not discriminate. It affects all individuals, all political parties, all ethnicities, of all economic backgrounds. This group is bipartisan and all-encompassing. People have been and will always be the key to advancing innovation, and we really place a focus on patient advocacy. So now that you have a little better understanding of what the EVERYLIFE Foundation does, I want to tell you about my favorite program of EVERYLIFE. The Young Adult Representatives of RDLA, or YAR, are a highly motivated group of 16 to 30-year-olds from the rare disease community. We advocate to bring more affordable, safe, and effective treatments to rare disease patients by creating a space that is conducive to young adults and working closely with the goals of the EVERYLIFE Foundation. I'll go into a little further details later about my favorite event thus far, which is my first time attending Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill. So we want to instill confidence in the next generation of young adult advocates and support young adults in their rare disease journey during the transitional phase from childhood to adulthood. And our hashtag is here as YAR. So just here are a couple of goals of YAR and the EVERYLIFE Foundation. So just to name a couple, we try and ensure that young adults have a growing impact on public policy for the rare disease community. We try and instill confidence in the next generation of rare disease legislative advocates. And we can even provide class credit, community service hours, and a resume building platform for young adults in the rare community. So we have 4 advocacy committees available with membership that can actually be applied at that link. And if anyone has any questions, I can give this link again at the end of the presentation, or I would be happy to speak with anyone after this. So you have to apply, and once you're accepted into the program, you're encouraged to join the closed Facebook group for support and access to other YAR's members within that network. You're also encouraged to participate in at least one lobby day meeting a year, Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill, or Rare Across America, which is formerly called In-District Lobby Days, during the August recess, or a meeting with your legislative official that you can schedule on your own. So the first committee I'm going to talk about today is our Advocacy Committee, and the Advocacy Committee is focused on creating materials that educate young adults on legislative public policy, and they help other peers have support around having effective meetings with congressional staff. This year at Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill, we had 90 young adults register for the Legislative Conference Day for 2019. This was our largest group yet. We hope to have an even greater group next year, and definitely want more people to apply. Our Strategic Communications Committee is focused on providing quarterly newsletters and social media support to the group. Last year, we had a logo redesign from YAR member Lauren Cox, who's currently in school for graphic design and marketing. Last year at one of our meetups, we had a YAR member with an interest in photography take professional headshots for those who wanted them for their public social media accounts. We also launched our first ever YAR newsletter in January 2019 this year. The third committee we have is called the Speakers Bureau, and the Speakers Bureau is providing opportunities for young adults to increase their public speaking skills. At Rare Disease Week, we had Taylor Kane present in the big session and 2 other youth breakouts led by YAR members. Our Rare on the Road opportunity encompassed Boston, Alabama, South Dakota, Colorado, and all included a YAR speaker. We had a hyperoxaluria workshop in July, and we'll also be having our Seattle Rare Disease Fair sometime in August of this year. So, my biased favorite committee is the Scientific Advocacy Committee, which I am also part of, and we work on how to make clinical trials and rare disease research policy more accessible for young adults. We encourage members to attend FDA patient-focused meetings and making them more aware when and where they're happening. I'm currently one of the project architects on the scientific committee, and we're trying to make rare disease registries, data, collaboration, and gene editing technologies more open, efficient, streamlined, and accessible to the rare disease community, with an ultimate long-term goal of global collaboration. One thing I can definitively say, it's a very exciting time to be a rare disease advocate. The reason why we are focusing on open data and access for the rare disease community is, and I know we touched base on some of these points if you were able to go to other events today or yesterday, but there's anecdotal data for every disease, and there are connections between symptoms and when the disease starts, and just everything about your disease can connect to a cure for another disease, or it can connect to helping someone else in the rare disease community. And when these data registries are closed off or data is not shared, it hinders progress. So we're really trying to break through that stigma, and we are really trying to just encourage universities, researchers, clinicians, doctors, and patient advocates alike to work with one another and just focus on the longer term goal of helping each other and finding cures to these diseases. So just like another reminder, you have to apply for YAR, and if you're interested, again, here's the link, or feel free to come and talk to me after the presentation and I can give you more information. So now we're going to switch gears on some tips for creating relationships with members of Congress. So the main goal of advocacy is for us to connect with members of Congress. We have to let them know what we stand for, what we're passionate about, who we are, who our family is, who our children are, who our parents are, how our disease affects us, and how we need them to help us. Don't ever forget that those are our constitutional rights. So here are some expectations of an advocate. Like I mentioned, share your story, explain why an issue matters to you and the rare disease community and how the legislation will help you. But don't be scared. You're not expected to be an expert on a bill or a particular policy. If you have never met in person with a member of Congress and you were nervous, remember you were there to tell them your story and how they can help you. It's not their first rodeo, even if it's yours. So, the perfect time to engage is always, anytime and all the time. You can schedule in-district meetings during district work periods, such as Rare Across America. You can come to Rare Disease Week in late February. Always pay attention to a particular bill's progress through the House and Senate and schedule meetings around key events in this cycle. And just make sure you don't wait until it's too late. Be vocal early about the issue you care about, why it matters to you, and how it will impact you, your family, and your community. So these are some tips on how to have a successful meeting with a member of Congress or a legislative assistant. You always start with an introduction, which should include your name, what district you're from, your rare disease affiliation. Make sure to elaborate on your legislative ask, discuss how this bill will help you in your everyday life. Make it personal, professional, and polite. Make sure you thank your member of Congress for their time, get a photo if there is time, and ask a good way to follow up. You can even post a social media post, which you can use some tips from Taylor to make sure you make that efficient, and tag your member, your rare disease affiliation, and the group you're with. Thank and recognize them on social media because members love this, and it will help you follow up with them as well. Make sure to send a follow-up and thank you note or email and reiterate the legislative ask. It's really important to note that legislative staffers and assistants are just as important as members of Congress. Don't be disappointed or discouraged if you get the opportunity to speak with an assistant. It is their job and their duty to report directly to their congressional member. A little later on in this presentation, I actually have a video of me at Rare Disease Week being able to ask a question to some legislative staffers from the current administration, and I had a stigma that, oh, it's a staffer, it's not a congressional member, but they actually are a lot more well-versed in the rare disease caucus than a broader congressional member would be talking about, because they have to know every idea, like every policy that they're going to be voting on. But those staffers were sent there with their homework to know what's going on at that rare disease week. So don't be disappointed. They're just as important. This data set is from a survey from the Congressional Management Foundation, showing how effective and how influential in-person visits from constituents were on their relationship with a member of Congress. And so in-person visits from constituents had the highest rating and the highest level of positive influence. And as you can see, the second highest influence was the contact from constituents' representatives. So keeping in contact with your member of Congress, keeping them on their toes, making sure that you're reminding them of what you're passionate about. You may not get a letter back every time, you may not get an email back every time, but if you continually email them, they will get back in touch with you. And it does make an influence, so you just have to persevere and you have to remain tenacious. If you're unable to go to DC, or it is challenging to leave the House for in-district meetings, there are plenty of other ways you can outreach to your members of Congress. You can write a letter, you can post an article or op-ed online if you're able to use your laptop. You can make phone calls, you can use social media. Just with however you choose to engage, just make sure you make it personal. Show your passion, show why it's important, and make your impact. So no matter how you choose to engage, it's important to practice your pitch. If you're meeting a member of Congress in person, you may only get 5 minutes of their time. So make sure you come prepared with a shorter version of your story, stick to your main goals of what you would like to achieve, and be sure to deliver the legislative ask. If you have more time, you can elaborate on your personal story, find ways to connect with the person, and allow time for more questions. So here we just said that most of the time you get a 5-minute elevator pitch. If you get lucky, you'll have a 30-minute elevator pitch. So it's important to practice both. With the 5-minute one, stick to your roots. What's important, what you want to get done in Congress, what legislation is important to you. Your 30-minute elevator pitch, that's when you can talk more about your background. You can talk more about things that aren't as relevant to just a piece of legislation. But the 5-minute pitch is, you should just definitely come prepared for both. So when you're connecting with your legislators, it's important to do a little homework on your own too. Try and find out what political party they're affiliated with, what committees do they participate in, what legislation they support, and what do you have in common with them. Always remember that our issues are bipartisan, and we're the rare party, and we're 30 million strong. It's really important to find issues and to find common ground with your legislators, because that makes it really easy to just have a very organic conversation. And it just streamlines the whole process, and by that time you won't even think that you're talking to a legislator. You will think that you're talking to a normal human being, because they are a normal human being. So treat them like one, and they'll treat you like one. So when you tell your story, just to reiterate the main things to make sure that you know to practice. Know the problem, what's affecting you, how it's affecting your family, how it's affecting the community. Come up with a possible solution that you think, whether it's a piece of legislation that could ease the impediment for your family. And find your call to action, whether that's calling a legislator, whether that's posting on social media, whether that is writing an op-ed or an article. These are the 3 main ingredients to tell your story, to make an effective story. So I'm not going to focus too much on this slide, since Taylor was able to talk about the major influence of social media. But if you have Twitter or Instagram, Facebook, whatever you use, if you use a social media platform, they love to be hashtagged, they love to be tagged, they love to just see their name posted everywhere. You can engage in discussions about legislative initiatives. The more you tag, the more outreach you have, the more you hashtag, the more people will most likely see your post and all that good stuff. So now we're going to talk a little bit about two main events that EVERYLIFE Foundation hosts on trying to help all of us meet members of Congressmen and women in person. We have Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill, and we also have Rare Across America. Both of these events take place annually. Rare Disease Week is at the end of February, and Rare Across America happens while Congress is on the summer recess and back in their local offices, typically during the month of August. So for Rare Across America, it happens July 29th to September 4th, and rare disease advocates from across the country meet with members of Congress in their local offices to advocate for legislation benefiting the rare disease community. Registration opens May 8th, and like all of EVERYLIFE's programs, it's free for patients, caregivers, and other rare advocates. So if you have time during these dates, make sure you save the date. So these are just a couple of goals of Rare Across America. Definitely focus on strengthening your relationship with members of Congress and staff to try and advance legislation that would benefit the rare disease community. It's really important to note, though, that meeting with members of Congress once a year is not enough. In order to build your relationship, you have to keep on top of them. Write an email, call them, give them a monthly update. Even if they don't reply, someone is reading it, and someone will reply eventually. So ideally, you're meeting with them during Rare Disease Week, during Rare Across America, and you're calling them throughout the year asking for support in your legislation of choice. Here are some guidelines on how to participate in Rare Across America. That link, again, I can give it to anyone who would like this after the presentation if you're wondering on where the registration link is. I believe on this page you can specify what dates you're not available, the distance you can travel, and just some guidelines, like notify them if you have to cancel, and you can schedule 2 senator meetings and 1 representative meeting. So everyone who registers for Rare Across America will be invited to a training webinar July 25th, and it will provide detailed information, including tips on how to make your meeting successful and what to research prior to your meetings. If you can't join, you'll be able to access the archived webinar online, and questions will be welcome during the webinar. So just make sure not to be shy. So again, 2019 was our 8th and most successful year for Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill. And this is one that I was able to attend, and you'll be able to see a bigger picture, but I'm actually right here with one of my close friends, Anna, that I met at Rare Disease Week. And we had 800 plus patients, caregivers, researchers, and other advocates who joined us for at least one event during the week. It was an amazing experience. I was able to network with rare disease advocates and patients from across the board. I can't even describe the experience to be able to not just be there to focus on your disease or a disease that affects your family, but to learn about other diseases and to know that you're not alone in this fight. It's a very empowering experience, and definitely go if you guys get the chance. So Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill is, in 2020, is going to be February 25th through February 28th. Rare disease patients, caregivers, and other advocates, including physicians and anyone affected can come. And it's a series of events aimed at empowering patients in DC. And again, it's free for all advocates to attend. So these are just some other reasons why you should think about attending, but the networking aspect and the support and education that you gain during this week is extremely helpful, and it's just nice to know that you're not alone in this fight, and we all have others to support and to rely on, and you get to educate legislators, which I actually will be able to show you guys a short little video clip in a minute or two, where I was able to ask a question which I never would have had the opportunity to do if I didn't go to Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill. So if you want face-to-face with your legislators or with staffer assistants, this is another great opportunity to get that. There's also financial assistance available through Rare Giving. EVERYLIFE was able to provide nearly $77,000 in travel stipends this year, which helped over 100 patients and caregivers to attend. Applications for travel stipends for 2020 will open in October. So if you're interested in financial assistance, keep October in your sights. So here is the bigger picture of that little small one. Here I am over here, and this actually wasn't even the entire group. I think they had to take a second picture because some people were like still eating while they were doing it, but it was a great group of people. Everyone was willing to and was open to talk about what was going on, why they were there, what brought them there, and the experience overall was just an amazing one. Hoping this works. This is a short little 4-minute clip. There were about like 5 or 6 people who got to ask a question to the I think it was the Rare Disease Caucus staffers, and I asked a question about America's current healthcare system and out-of-pocket costs. She said Medicare for all will be the most beneficial for the rare disease space, seemingly due to reluctance and tentative partisan budget readjustments. How will lowering drug prices help our lower-income communities when there are still recurring prices on these novel drug and gene therapies? You can lower these therapies and treatments to $250 monthly out of pocket, but that is still $3,000 a year and $75,000 over 25 years without taking deductibles into account. Lowering drug prices is important, but the fact that there are still out-of-pocket costs, even with the preferred market-based private insurance program that we currently have, makes lowering out-of-pocket costs even more important. How is the current administration taking the steps to protect and support our low-income family and their insurance costs, and what programs can we reach out to for help?
So my first thing, would be, getting in touch, of course, with your particular member of Congress and their casework staff, because this actually sounds like there may be, with regard to, what programs are existing out there, to help alleviate perhaps some of the current cost burden being borne by, various individuals, reaching out to that casework staff, in your district. They can help connect you with the appropriate agencies and personalities to see if something can't be done in that regard, or if you may qualify for certain things to help alleviate some of those cost concerns. With regard to what the administration is doing, they are certainly working with Congress and having those conversations with Energy and Commerce members on what is a legislative step that we can take to move forward on this issue of drug pricing. And of course, once you begin to get into the world of drug pricing, there are various models out there, ranging from hey, how do we perhaps address drug pricing from a from a research perspective, because certainly making sure that drug companies are incentivized to, go out and make these cures versus, kind of sitting back on their heels and kind of, doing a cost-benefit analysis and saying, okay, well, there really, isn't enough of a patient population that, is here to recoup, our, years of, research and trials and, all the costs that's associated with that to further down the pipeline, looking at, okay, well, insurance plans and how networks are formulated, what have you. So, it's a multi-tertiary issue that is going to take a multifaceted approach. I don't think, and sorry to kind of give a Washington answer. There just isn't. There just isn't a silver bullet solution. One solution. I think it's going to have to be a multifaceted approach. What dials are particularly chosen to be engaged at this point. I'm entirely unclear. My boss, for instance, has he's actually looking to incentivize drug manufacturers to actually get into the space and to develop new cures and treatments for folks with a rare disease. It's called the Open Act. One of those, and I might have been working with your boss on it actually. There's a multifaceted approach to this that's kind of going on right now in Congress.
Can I also just say that you are totally within your rights when you're talking to a member of Congress to say, my family should not be impoverished for me to have to pay for a drug to save my life or save the life of a family. I expect you to take this on as a top priority issue, and I'm going to be following up to see what you're doing about it. Assert your rights. That's what you're here for.
Thank you. So, as you can see, there were many different opinions and answers to that question. It was actually a little funny for me as a political science major to hear a legislative staffer answer that question about 4 different times, saying multifaceted and multi-tertiary, because what that means in layman's terms is I do not know the answer to your question. Now, I am sure a lot of people in that room at that time either didn't know why he was saying that or what the heck he was talking about. And multi-tertiary means many disciplines, and multifaceted means a lot of things. So he could have just said that. And then I don't know if you guys heard, but like 3 minutes into the video, he said, sorry for a Washington answer. And I went into the microphone and he talked all over me a little bit. But I went in and I said expected. Because there is no silver bullet. I agree with him that. There is no silver bullet to the copay problem that we have in America and the deductibles that we have. But all it takes is that 20-second response then when the woman staffer chimed in and she said, we don't deserve to be impoverished for treatments and therapies and cures for our diseases, and there's no reason for us to have to suffer economically or socially because of that. And that's the whole point of my presentation, is when she said, assert your rights. Those are our rights. If we have a problem, our tax money goes to them. And people don't like to hear that, but that is the truth. That is what they're there for. If we have a problem, whether it is with our medical, whether it is with our budget, whether it is with our family, they're there to help. And if he doesn't help, then she'll help. And if she can't help, then she'll find someone for us to help. And if none of them can help, then they'll give us a reference to someone to help. But that is how the system works, and I'm just here to let you guys know we all have a voice, and we all need to use it. And it's also fun to get someone to not know how to answer a question, stumble around a question for 4 minutes. So that was the highlight of, I mean, there were many highlights, but to get that on video was funny for me. And so this is just there's some time set aside if anyone has any questions. I just gave some sample questions if anyone had any. Yeah.
If you don't have a particular existing or being debated bill that has to do with the issue that you want to advocate for, would you recommend like still going and having the conversation and maybe they can propose one, or like trying to find something else that you can talk about that is an actual current piece of legislation?
So that's a great question. Honestly, you could do either. If you have if you feel like you have the resources and you have the knowledge to come up with a tentative proposal on your own, then yeah, I would definitely come up with a bill or a proposal or work with some people in the community and show that to a member of Congress, no matter who it is, who you feel like could help you. But if there is already a bill that you think you could work off of as like a template, you could do that as well.
Something else we usually do is you can always go in and ask them to continue supporting robust funding for the NIH and the FDA, because even though they allocate funding when they do the budget every year, that's sort of one that you can say, like, thank you for supporting funding, like, we'd like it if you continued support. So even though it's not necessarily asking for exempt legislation, that's kind of like a filler if you don't have an exact piece. Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? I have some contact info for the director of ER if you guys would like that. If you would like the link, I can provide that again. But I just wanted to end on this. Every voice matters, no matter what age you are. We're the rare party, and together we're 30 million strong. Don't ever forget that. Thank you for your guys' time today.
Thank you.